just making sure that you guys can hear me. Welcome to this evening's webinar on becoming your own guide and developing your psychic abilities. So if you guys want to come on camera, you may do so. If you don't, it's okay. There's a chat box down below, or there's a chat box where you can ask certain questions. I'll just go into a little bit of information about all this, and then you have the opportunity to ask me any questions you may have at all about the psychic world, energy work, intuitive, and how to really become your own guide. So how do we become our own guide, and why is it important? So, well, it is important because if we are able to become our own guide, then we really can have more ease when we are making decisions in our life, when we have to step forward in our life. It's really about empowering ourselves. So let me just back up for a moment. When we really tune in and tap into and really develop our intuitive sense, or our extrasensory perception, or that other feeling that we all know we have, however, we don't really pay that much attention to. Now, most people, if you ever come across anyone or you talk to someone, most people will say, I had a feeling, but I just knew, I just had a feeling. Or people will say, I had a gut feeling that this might or might not happen. I just had a sense. There's always that sort of I had, but I had. And that's really the intuitive part of us. That's really our intuitive self. That's really that sort of higher self, higher voice that is really trying to communicate with us. However, we tend to not really listen to it, ignore it. Some of us will sort of just hear it, but we're not really sure what that is. And we sort of get caught up in the mind stuff or in the emotional stuff of what's really going on in our life. So, well, I heard that voice, it feels like this, but I really should do this. Or it's really logical to do this. Or I should really stay at this job or this company because, you know, I really need the money and it wouldn't be smart for me to leave. All these things that we justify against usually that sort of voice or that knowing that we naturally have. Our mind comes in and kind of is the soldier or the responsible adult to say, no, you can't do this and you can't do that and you should do this and you should go there. And we fall into the emotional arena or our emotional space, which sort of is a little bit like a whirlwind of emotions, and you feel all these emotions and it's hard sometimes to just navigate, you know, number one, why am I feeling all of this? And two, most of us don't want to feel the way we feel. So if it's any sort of quote unquote negative emotion, we don't want to feel it. Most of us just don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel the sadness, the anger. We also don't really want to feel the anger, the doubt, you know. And so we're kind of, what happens is that we kind of get stuck either in the mind space or the emotional space. And what ends up happening is that, you know, we'll move forward in our life, we'll make the decision, we will, you know, take this job, get into this relationship, turn this way or that way, but we'll doubt. We'll question, then we play the whole thing back again, we regret. I mean, there's a lot of that goes around our emotional nature and our sort of mind nature, you know, the mental self and our emotional self. And between there is a place of magic, really, is that place of intuition, that place of neither mind nor emotion. It's that place of deep, deep, deep knowing. This, it can come in a voice, it can come in a sound, it can come in a feeling, it can come in a thought. There's different ways that it comes in, but I want to say most of us, all of us have it, okay? All of us have it. Now, the degree to which we listen to it or hear it or acknowledge it will vary from person to person, but we all have it. And it's in that little space that is a little unknown to a lot of us. Now, not some of us, but to a lot of us, it's kind of unknown. It's not really defined. We're not really taught this in schools or even at home. So it's kind of like a little undefined. And we tend to not like things that we don't know or that's unknown. So here I have my mind that I'm really used to. I've been sitting in my mind for a really long time. I've been using it to make decisions for a really long time. I'm trained for a really long time how to use my mind. And here I am in my emotions. It's a place I really know well. You know, I've been emotional since 2 years old. Moving forward through life, some sort of emotions I know is there. But this space is a little unknown. I feel it, I sense it, I kind of know it, but, right? We kind of go back to the but. And it's that but that tends to make us not listen or hear what that voice or that feeling or that inner knowing is really kind of communicating to us. So again, different degrees for different people. However, it's that we all know. So there's this famous saying that I'm sure many of people have heard by now, all the answers are within. And yes, it can be a very cliche saying, it can be just words on a paper. However, there's actual truth to all the answers are within. Because at a very, 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 very simple and basic level, we all know. You know what's right for you, good for you. You know what truth is. However, so if we know and knowing is here, if this is the knowing, it's sort of all clouded up with everything else, right? Mind, emotion, conditioning, programming, belief systems, our belief systems, other people's belief systems, it's all sort of clouded up. And so in order for us to really, so one thing is, so this is all about becoming our own guide, right? So one thing is recognizing this. That's one step forward, is to recognize that, hey, there is something underneath it all. Something that I feel that's not my mind or emotions, something that either I'm thinking. So this intuition sort of comes in different ways for different people. So first, it's recognizing that it exists, it's there. And the second thing is to trust it, or go with it, or follow it. And these are kind of two separate things. I will say that for the purpose of this, it's two separate things. And a lot of us now more and more than ever recognize this. I don't want to say majority, but we'll say a lot of us recognize that there's something. That little voice, I know I should have went left, but I went right. I know I should have done this, but I did this. And it's always in the sort of after fact, right? When retrospect, when we look back, we kind of say, oh yeah, but I knew it was that. I knew it wasn't that. And we sort of get that little, I knew, but I didn't follow it. So a lot of us have that recognition that there is something more. But where it stops or halts or sort of gets jammed is in the, I'm going to trust it enough to follow it. I'm going to trust it enough to be guided by it. I'm going to trust it enough to make my decision through it or with it or by it. And that's kind of the piece where we can use a little bit of work, basically. We can all use a little bit of work. And that's kind of where we transform from, yeah, I know intuition is that thing, or it's my gut feeling. A lot of people will call it a gut feeling, into being led by it. That's really the how can I say, that little kind of space, that subtle difference between knowing it and then trusting it and following it and letting it guide you in your life. And so if you talk to some people or come across some people or hear stories about certain people, about their life story and how they went where they were or did what they did or got into what they were, whatever the case may be, some people will tell you, I was guided there. I was led there. I don't know what called me. I don't really know what pulled me, but something did and I went. And so a lot of times our intuition, now intuition can be very multidimensional, right? When I talk, I'm talking about certain aspects of it. So a lot of times, not all times, our intuition can sometimes be illogical. Why am I being called there when my whole life is here? Why am I being called to another country? Why am I being called suddenly? I love this job all my life, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling a pull or a call towards something else. And it's really, we want to answer those calls, the calls of our soul, the calls of our spirit, the calls of that something else, because we are more than just this body and just this three-dimensional world that we're living in. It's more than just going to work and having the family and taking care of our responsibilities. There's more that our soul yearns for. And we want to start to hear it and see it and feel it and connect to it and allow it its full expression. This is why we have come here and why we are in these separate looking bodies. You know, my body looks different than yours and everyone else's, because physically we all have separate expressions, and on a soul level we also have separate expressions on a soul level. And we want to start to step into feeling it, connecting with it, and following it more and more. Now, I want to say that our soul calling, you could even say the intuitive calling, the soul calling, is really felt at the heart level. What is my heart pulling me towards? What's happening in my heart space and I'm not talking about the biological heart, the energetic heart, the center of your chest. In this area, there's a pull, there's an energetic pull, there's a force, there's a magnetic pull. Where is my soul, my heart? So on a physical level, I want to say we can connect with the soul, not through our emotions, but the energy of our heart space. Where am I being, I feel this pull calling me. And that's really what we want to start to connect more and more with, and allow it to pull us and call us forward. So there is you could call it a famous saying, but the heart will never lead you astray. Okay, the heart will never lead you wrong. Our intuition will never lead us astray. The key is to identify what is the intuition and what is the mind and the mental stuff and chatter, and what is the emotional stuff. That's the key here. So I get some people sometimes saying, well, you know, I listened to my intuition and I did this and it really didn't work out for me. So if we break that down, number one, was it really the intuition? Was it really that space, that subtle space that you were able to tune into and listen to? That's number one. Number two, did it really, really, truly leave you astray or let you go wrong somewhere? So the intuition is not an obedient servant of your desires, okay? It's not an obedient servant of your needs, your wants. It's not. And so if you are connected and attached and deeply want something, and there's nothing wrong with that, but your intuition comes and drops a little nugget of soul, let's say, soul energy, and you want to follow that and you're called somewhere else, it's not necessarily wrong, it's different. And I deeply believe, no matter how hard it is sometimes to accept it or believe it, that wherever we are in each and every moment of our life, and whatever we get into or get involved with is part of our deep learning as a physical being here, as a soul in this physical body. And it is difficult to sometimes accept that, because we want our circumstances to be different. We've all been there, you know, living something, experiencing something, and wanting something else. We've all been there, myself included, multiple times, including this present moment. But we are all exactly where we are needed to be in this very moment. Doesn't mean that in 5 moments from now, it will be the same or it needs to be the same, but it's in this moment. And so it's with the courage to follow that subtleness that comes to us, whether it comes to us through dreams, through the daydream space, whether it comes to us when we're washing dishes, when we're walking the dog, when we're driving to work, wherever that wisdom, or I would call it soul magic, drops into us. Are we able to have the courage to say, okay, I hear you, I hear it, let me hear it again, or let me hear it louder? Do we have the courage to follow it? Do we have the courage to not just recognize it, but to allow it into our life? To make space for it. So many of us want answers to everything that's going on in our life. Again, myself included. I'm not excluding myself here. We all want answers. We all want to know why. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And the thing is, we are receiving the answers. We are receiving the answers. I want to even say, in most moments of our life, we receive the answers to all of our questions. However, we have not been trained or attuned to hearing, recognizing, trusting, following those answers that do come. What usually tends to happen is that we lessen them. On the contrary, we actually lessen that beautiful information that comes to us for us. We just say, oh, it's just my imagination. Oh, it's just my dreams. It's a dream. It's never going to really happen. Or, we really sort of justify this voice. And what happens is that we justify it, we lessen it, we make it less, we devalue it, and then we follow the mind. Again, the mind has its place. I'm not here to tear down the mind. I love the mind, and I love the emotions, but we're talking about intuition. So I'm really focused, zero focused or laser focused on intuition at the moment. So why would it be important to follow this or develop this? So the other thing is, okay, we haven't been encouraged, most of us, all of our life, since we were very young children, and this is not all of us, okay, because there are some children that grow up in with parents or families or situations that highly encourage this part of us, okay? But for a lot of us, and I'm from the Western world, and that is really just unheard of. It's black and white and that's it. It was always sort of put down. So all my imaginary friends were just imaginary. And I had many, and many kids have many, for example. So it wasn't really encouraged growing up. Our schools, our society, our systems didn't really have a place for it. And so what happens is that we didn't really learn about it. And if we don't learn about it, we're not aware of it, we don't know, and so we don't use it. So I'm going to try and find an example of how I can sort of parallel this. It's the same thing with arts, How would you know you can draw if you never, number one, realize that there's such thing as drawing? If nobody ever told you, hey, here, take a pencil or a crayon or a marker or a paintbrush and put it to paper and see what happens. If nobody ever says that, how would you ever know that this is available to you, that this exists? You may have daydreams of drawing and you don't know what it is. You have no idea what it is. And that's usually what happens when we come into the psychic realm. A lot of people will come in and they tell me about their experiences, and they're sort of, how do you call it? Not supernatural experience, but these ethereal experiences, these experiences they just can't understand. The mind can't wrap their head around it. And I'm sort of kind of there and tell them, well, yeah, that's actually really normal. And this happens. And I try to help them understand that, yes, it actually is quite normal. Now, if we have books to help us understand, we have teachers, etc., etc. But if nobody really helps us understand, number one, A, that it exists, B, that it's actually something real, and three, or C, that, you know, we can actually develop it so it becomes something that we can use as a resource. So, or a strength, or sort of like yeah, exactly, another resource. Then we don't know. So for example, the drawing example. So I don't know that drawing exists. Maybe I'm a great drawer, but I've never done it. And now all of a sudden somebody comes and gives me a pencil and paper and says, hey, here, draw. And I don't know what they're saying, but I do it. I just do it. And then that evolves into, oh, maybe I'm going to take classes, and maybe I'm going to, and all of a sudden I realize, I find, wow, drawing exists. So many people do it. And there's classes and courses to help me develop getting even better and better and better at it, to learn how to, the strokes, and I'm not a drawer, so I don't know all these terminology, but you know, how to draw the anatomy, or how to draw landscapes, we learn. So I want to say it's the same thing when it comes to the psychic and energy world. Yes, we all have the natural ability. It's in us, but we don't know it. And then if we know it, then it's just becomes sort of like a little bit, wow, and it's over here and it's over there. But the thing is, we can actually develop it, we can train in it, and we can get even better and better at, number one, understanding it, understanding what it is, understanding how to access it, how to activate it within us, and how to use it in our daily life. So this world, you can call it energy world, psychic world, whatever it is that you call it, is no different than any other world that we experience here in the physical, in terms of developing it so that we can connect to it more, we can connect to it more easily, and we can use it in our daily human life. So, you know, intuition and psychic world and psychic work and all of this is not just there, it doesn't just exist for that group of people, okay? It's not just for that, it's for all of us, okay? All of us. If we understood our energy system better, and if we understood how to work with our own energy system, we would all be better off in the experiences of our life. We would take that into our life. We would take that into the workplace. We would take that into our relationships. We would take that into just living the way we want to be living, and understanding, you know, why aren't we living the way we want to be living, and all of that. And so it's not just for people, quote unquote, who want to be psychic or readers or clairvoyants or energy healers, or it's for everyone. It's for everyone. Just like, I love to use little examples that might be far off, but just like taking a shower. Taking a shower is for everyone, or bathing our physical body. Let's forget about the shower, because not everybody uses showers. Bathing, cleaning our physical body is for everyone. It's not for a select group of people. Some might do it more than others and in different kinds of ways, but it's for everyone. And so I'm here to say that, yes, developing your intuition, developing your psychic abilities, developing your energetic abilities or your healing abilities is for everyone. So that's really important to understand. I believe that it's really important to understand, because some people might feel like they can't do it or they don't have it. And some people might sort of like, oh, it's not for me, it's for those kind of people. No, it's for all of us. And on my personal journey with developing my intuition, I can say that it was the biggest game changer for me in my life, because I went from struggling with my emotions, struggling with my mind, not knowing right from wrong, truth from non-truth, from my real imagination, imagining things that are not there, creating scenarios in my head that just don't exist, and causing my own suffering. So prior to me kind of stepping onto this world and into this work, I created my own suffering in a very, very quite intense way, because I would imagine all these things that are happening that are just not. But I went with my mind. I went with my emotions. And I'm like, well, it has to be happening. And I would really cause a lot of my own suffering. Well, I believe we all do to a certain extent. But I really created a lot of my suffering. And as I got more and more into this work and into this world and stepped more and more specifically into the developing the intuition and the psychic realm, I started to understand how to tune into that space, that subtle space. And I started to be able to differentiate from what the mind was creating, what my emotions, what I was feeling, that I was all caught up in the emotions of stuff. And I was really able to be more and more in that space, which was unknown for me at the time. I was able to be more and more into that subtle space, which is that higher self space, godlike space, universal space, intuitive space, soul space. And it wasn't a overnight, oh yeah, now I recognize the space, I'm able to feel it, be in it, hear it, now I just trust it. No, it was a process of, okay, now I hear it, and now I need to start. So what I did is I got curious with it. I didn't trust it right away. And, you know, trust is built over time in anything, right? In anything, trust is built over time. And the trust, the ability for me to trust my own intuition really was a process over time. I needed to see, you know, did my intuition or did that space have my back? Was it really true? Was it really real? And that's normal. That's completely normal. So, you know, becoming intuitive, I guess you can call it that, becoming intuitive, but you are intuitive. So just being able to tune into and listen, hear, follow, trust that realm, that space is really going to help you in your life. There's so many ways that it does help you. So I'm just trying to grab what I can say is like the biggest ways that it helps you. Well, number one, again, it doesn't leave you caught up in the mind and the emotions. It helps you move forward from the place of suffering. It helps you go beyond the mind. Mind is limited. The space, intuitive space, is not limited. The psychic space is not limited. The other piece is that you start to understand your life from a much, much deeper place. It's no longer he said, she said kind of space. It's no longer this sort of physical space. It's kind of like a much deeper space. You kind of deep dive way down into a much deeper space, deeper dimension of self. Really, that's what it is. It's connecting to the deeper dimension of yourself. And life starts to shift and change. Life starts to shift and change. It becomes more. It becomes, I would say, even more exciting. There's more. There is more than what you physically see. There's a lot more to your life right now, wherever you are tuning into this, wherever you are at all, there is more to your life than what you physically see. And, you know, learning how to develop this intuition, this intuitive space, or tapping into it, or working with it, you know, again, making space for this space in your life, working with it really helps you understand those deeper layers of self. And so with understanding comes less suffering, less self-suffering. It's in the understanding of things that things start to transform. And I want to say that's one of the biggest gifts that it has brought me in my life, is that I really deeply understand myself in a much deeper way than I ever had prior. And I really, in the process of understanding myself, I started to understand others. And so understanding others helped me know that, you know what, it really isn't about me. And of course, there's always layers to learn about this, but I understand others and where they're coming from and their suffering and their perceptions. And that helped me and continues to help me not take everything so personally. You know, it helps me, again, suffer less. It's really about, you know, coming out of that place of suffering because somebody else did something or didn't do something or said something or didn't say something. It's and in catching yourself. So it's not about, oh, now I'm intuitive and now nothing ever bothers me and I don't get affected by anything. And now I'm intuitive and I only listen to intuition. I don't even listen to my mind anymore. Well, I want to say that's not true. I've been in this working with intuition and the psychic world for over 10 years, and I still to this day have to pause sometimes and really feel into, wait a minute, is this my mind here or what's going on? However, being more and more intuitive and trusting it and following it and working with it helped me understand myself better. And so when we know ourself deeply, we know, I want to almost say in an instant, we know, no, this is my mind. No, this is my wounding. This is my trigger. This is my father's belief system. This is my old programming. We know, we start to know. It's not us. It's not who we are. No, it's the mind. No, it's the emotions. No, I'm feeling this way because, you know, when I was a little girl, I got kicked out of the house and I felt abandoned. I felt rejected. Now I'm feeling this way. So no, this is not the intuition. Like, you start to really connect with the subtleness of these voices and feelings that you're experiencing. And you'll be able to decipher, you know, this is not my intuition. So that comes with practice, that comes with time, but that comes with developing it, that comes with, you know, putting attention. You know, how do we get good at something? Or not only get good at something, but how do we become, let's say, something or have something? We have to put attention onto it, you know? I'm just grabbing all these random examples. So how do we learn how to brush our teeth? For many of us at 4 years old or 3 years old, it was the weirdest thing to do. I mean, I see a lot of children now and they bite the brush, they suck on the brush, they play with it. What is this thing? And we sort of learned over time, and now it's just kind of like second nature. So it's kind of like something that we must start to, well, we don't have to do it at all, but it's something that we have to start to tune into and work with it. So how do we learn how to get good at using a toothbrush? We just did it every day. And then of course we started to get good at it. It's like with everything on this earth plane, you can say. So the same thing with intuition. If you really want to use it more and more in your life, we need to connect with it more and more. And so we can do it in different ways. And so just like connecting back to it being a guide in your life, well, the more you connect with it, the more you recognize it, acknowledge it, follow it, trust it, the more that you start to use it to help you make decisions, to help you understand truth versus non-truth, both within yourself. So not just when it comes to someone else, because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to know what the truth is. You know, I want to know when I'm in a relationship or I'm in this, I want to know. Yes, okay, that's for sure. Understood. But it's also to help you tune more and more into what your truth is, because a lot of us are not really living in our truth. We're living according to what we need to do, what we have to do, what we should do, what society sort of kind of pulls us towards or paves the road for. So, you know, really becoming intuitive or tapping into that psychic realm helps us tune more and more into our truth, our raw, real truth. Do I really want to get married? Do I really want to have children? Do I really want to be in this relationship? Do I really want to be in this job? Many of us don't, but we do it anyway. And so really developing the intuition helps us develop a deeper connection to ourself, helps us to have a deeper connection to our own truth. And when we have that, naturally, Our life will shift and change because we won't, based on that deeper truth and deeper connection to ourselves, we may not make those same decisions. We may do something different. We may feel completely different. And so using the intuitive or the intuition or the psychic realms as a guide, you know, we want to become our own guide. Because yes, we can read the books, we can go to the classes, we can do the trainings, we can have the sessions, we can have the therapy, we can have all of it. But who is with you 24/7, 24/7? Who wakes up with you and goes to sleep with you? Even if there's 100 people living with you, it's you and you and you. So of course we want to be able to connect with this resource, this rich resource that we naturally have to be able to know. And just looping back to what I was saying before, that we do all know, that famous quote or saying, the answers are all within, it is true. But like I was saying, we have so much, the truth and the knowing is here, and we have so much stuff that clouds it, we just can't hear it. And then if we hear it, then we don't believe it. We don't believe it because we haven't been trained or encouraged to be attuned to it to the degree that we have been encouraged or trained to be attuned to our mind. And so that's really the difference of, you know, feeling like we know and we don't know. We all know. The other thing is, a lot of us, we don't have the courage to admit. It's a big, big, big courage piece to admit something that may change the course of our life, that may affect someone else. You know, it's huge courage piece. And so again, intuition and the psychic realm and world is not just about, oh yeah, I can read your mind. You're thinking about this and you're thinking about that. That's surface. That's okay. But we want to use the work, or we want to become intuitive or more intuitive, or, you know, tap into our psychic abilities really for our own healing, for our inner peace, for our own evolution, and for the peace and healing of others. That's really why we want to tap into it, not because our egos get a nice gift or trip or have a fun time, you know? So again, all the answers are within. Now, developing intuition or, you know, tapping into the psychic realms will help us connect to the place of those answers, will help us hear them louder and louder, will help us recognize them, trust them, and follow them. So becoming your own guide, I would say, is deeply important. I would almost say one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves, almost the biggest gift that we can give ourselves. And really being able to tap into ourselves and feeling and knowing this is right for me and no, this is not right for me. Again, that's one thing. And being able to follow that is another step. And the thing is, when we really develop it and when we really start to tune into it and hear it, we can't ignore it. This is the other thing. It doesn't go away. We cannot ignore it. It may get a little soft and quiet, but until we answer the call, it never goes away. It may look different, it may change form a little bit, but the call doesn't go away. The pull doesn't go away. And we can bury it. And we can bury it for a long time, and we can ignore it for a long time, and we can numb it out with substance or other things for a long time. But that inner pull, calling, knowing doesn't go away until we really answer it, And so I don't really believe there's, I need to be mindful of how I say this, but when it comes to making decisions for ourselves and our life, I really don't believe there's right or wrong decisions. You know, if you make a decision today and it doesn't turn out, you're going to be redirected. Just allow yourself to be redirected to something else. And perhaps you needed to go through this route or road to be able to be redirected somewhere else. So a lot of people tend to struggle with decisions. And I've had my fair share of struggling with decisions. And it was really only when I was connecting more and identifying more with my mind that I had trouble with decisions. When I connected with my truth or my knowing or my intuitive space, there was no trouble at all with decisions, with making decisions or knowing what's right for me or what I need. There's never a problem. It's only when I, till this day, sometimes connect with the mind. And the mind will find a problem. You know, our egos want us to stay safe. We know this. Want us to stay comfortable. And so it will find a problem for maybe this radical thing. It's maybe not so radical, but to the mind it is. So it's important to understand. And I really believe that it's important for more and more and more and more of us to really tune into our truth. Now, our truth may not be the truth of someone else, but it's the truth for you, and it's not the mind, okay? And it's not your emotional pool, because anger is not truth. It's not really the truth. That sadness is not really the truth. It's something you're feeling, but it's not really your truth. It's, you want to really connect in with your truth, because when you do, life changes. Life completely changes. Now, that doesn't mean that you have a free ticket to the destination. It doesn't mean that everything becomes so easy, but it changes. It just changes. It changes in terms of, again, there's another dimension to life. You know, there's another dimension to life. And that's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And, you know, no one can take that away from you. You know, no one can take your truth away. No one can take that knowing of yours away. And yeah, I would say that's one of the most beautiful gifts that we can have and that we can develop for ourselves, really. I would say that's one of our greatest powers, is to really be able to tune into our truth, to know it, to feel it. Following it is another thing, right? Following it is another thing. And following it really is practice. That's really practice. It's okay, let me try to do this and what happens. And it's really just practice. It's exercising the muscle of courage. I would say the courage to step in the direction of our truth. And the more we do it, as we know, the more easier it gets. So, becoming your own guide. Who would not want to become their own guide, you know? And of course, you know, having guides, is important as well. It's not about not having guides or not reading another book or not, you know, it's not about that. It's just being able to rely on self-reliance is one of the most beautiful gifts, and the beautiful ways that we can empower ourselves is through self-reliance. Yeah, I can really go on, and I will. However, I just want to pause and just to see and check if there are any questions. And I'm just going to check into the chat. And so anybody who wants to ask a question, the best way to do that is to just write that into the chat box. And I believe you're able to. I believe that's open for you. So yeah, please let me know any questions you have. And I'll leave that open for a little bit. And so, yeah, so the other thing that I wanted to mention is that how did it happen for me? Well, like I said, we're all intuitive. We all have that psychic gift. We all have the ability, but we haven't really developed it, or, some people don't even know that it exists, or some people know, but they don't really know. It's like it's there, but it's not there. And so the way that I really developed it was I got trained. Yes, I had the natural, I had the natural ability for it, and I knew, and it, but then when I stepped into a real training for it, which I didn't even know that existed way back then, when I stepped into training it, that's what really changed the game for me. That's like kind of what really brought me from, okay, I know it's there, I know it's this, how do I really tap into it and listen to it? But then I started to train it. So I got an actual proper training, how to train your intuition. It's clairvoyance and psychic work. And then I practiced, I really practiced a lot. And I didn't sit down like you would do in school, or like, okay, I have to practice today. I use life to help me practice. So any situation that would arise in my life that I would get a charge to, or would get a thought about, I practiced tuning more into the intuitive space, the intuition. And it wasn't a kind of like overnight thing, but it was through it was almost like a negotiation and really feeling into, again, that place of truth. So even to today, okay, even to today, whenever there's something that's very emotionally charged for us, our mind and our emotions are always going to fire first, okay? Our intuition is going to be there, but we're going to tend to listen to the mind or emotions. And even to today, sometimes that gets me, but then I know, I'm like, there's something I know that I need to figure out more, because that's the intuition saying, no, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not the answer, that's not true. And so I go more into reflection and more into reflection until it sort of strikes me, or I wouldn't say hits me, but strikes me, or sort of, I would say strikes me that, wait a minute, no, that's not the truth. And then it's that clear, crisp, very simple, very subtle knowing. It can be a little voice, or a little feeling, or a drop of a thought that comes in, or inspiration, I call it, more than a thought. And it's subtle, it's soft, it's not aggressive. It comes and it goes. It doesn't stay and fester. When something stays and festers, you can pretty much understand or know that it's your mind or your emotions, okay? So yes, going back to how it started for me, so I really trained it. I really did a training, and I do want to share that with everyone. So I have the intention to share that with anyone until people started to ask me, hey, how did you develop this, and how did it happen for you? And I'm like, well, I trained in it, and like, what can we? And I'm like, sure. And so that's kind of how it happened. I started to offer these trainings for people in the exact same way and manner that I did it. And I'm offering it again. So I'm offering it here at Illuminations. If you guys are interested, you can check out the website. All the information is there. About how, and in these courses that I teach, or that I instruct or facilitate, it's step-by-step concrete ways. It's not ethereal, it's not sort of it's concrete ways of X, Y, and Z, or 1, 2, 3, 4. I call it plug and play. So you really start to work with your intuition and your psychic ability in a way that I call plug and play. You plug in these pieces and you play the tape, and it works. There is no one that has come through any of these courses, both mine or other people's, that it has not worked for. Because again, it's our natural ability, so of course it's going to work. We just need like the access key or the access card. So I would call it a bit of an access card. The training is like an access card, basically. So I see some questions come up. I'm just going to... Okay, so let me just, okay, so there's a couple questions. So one, is it intuition connect to our spiritual guides? Is it their voice, or is it our inner voice? So our guides, I want to say that our guides are trying to shake us to listen to our own inner voice. Our spirit guides are around us to help us, guide us where we need to go, and they're around us to, exactly like a guide, right? So if I decide, I'm going to use an example. If I decided to travel by foot to Oman, let's say, along the way, I'm going to stop, and I may not stop because I may be hard-headed. I know how to get there, and I might get really, really lost along the way. And if I get really lost, I'm going to start asking for guidance. How do I get to Oman? How do I get there? How do I get there? So I like to consider guides as such. Our soul is calling and pulling us, and I'm not going to get into fate and destiny and any of that, but there's something higher in our highest good for us. And we know we get lost along the way. And so there are these guides that are there along the way to sort of guide us and push us. And yes, sometimes their voices come through. Yes, our guide will say, you know what? Meditate more. Or a guide will say, don't forget who you are. Or a guide will say, you have the courage. Remember, you have the courage. There are little guides along the way. So I know it's our inner voice, our inner knowing, and our guides, yes, they use our voice, and sometimes we connect to it and hear it. It's to help us remember. It's to help us remember. So this is how I would describe that difference. I just dropped the chat. Let me see. So I hope that answered the question. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the first question. So do you have some exercises we can start doing to develop this ability? There are many, many, many exercises, and I would say, and I would really say meditation is really part of this. But now, before I use that word, and you know, that word has become loaded, you don't have to know anything about meditation to just sit with yourself for 10 minutes a day. It could be in silence, you can have some music, just sit. 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day even, okay? Just 5 minutes a day. Sit in silence, you can put the music or not. This is what I would really recommend people to start doing, because the intuition and that psychic, you know, subtleness comes quietly. And if we're busy and running and moving and thinking of this and thinking of that, we miss it, we miss it. And if it comes, but we don't hear it. So it's like whispering in a room full of loud music. The whisper exists, but we just don't hear it. So you want to take yourself out of the room, and taking yourself out of the room of noise is what we can call meditation loosely. So you don't even have to call it meditation, because then people are like, I don't know how to do it, and I'm not doing it wrong, and I'm falling asleep, and I'm thinking about my life. Sit for 5 or 10 minutes and think about your life. Do not think about your life. Sit for 10 minutes and let any and every single thought come through your mind. Do not battle it, fight it, try to stop it, try to go into the third eye, mantra this, breath this. No, just sit and let whatever happens, happens, and do this every day. 5 or 10 minutes a day. Eventually, you may get some less speed, you know, the thoughts might slow down. You may start to ask questions, you know, what should I do next? Should I go here? You want to develop a relationship with that quiet space, or I won't even call it quiet space, because it's not really quiet. It's just, I would call it just a subtle space. That's what I would call it. So that is a very simple, almost too simple for the mind to accept it, but it really does help, because you need just a place where you can start to, it's like you develop, what's happening when you do that is like you're creating a container. And so you don't have to do it all the time, but if you at least start to establish the container, when you're out in your busy life, that container is already established. And so the subtle intuition can drop into the container. But if you don't have that container created and you're out in your busy life, it drops in and it goes wherever. So if you have that container, then at least it can drop in even when you're busy, and you can start to hear it and recognize it. So this is why I would say start with just 5 to 10. If you can do 15, it's great. I say 5 because we can all do 5 and 10, no matter what is going on in our life, just sitting and just being with whatever is, just being with whatever is. And what you're going to start to do is you're going to start to create yourself as a witness to what's happening. That's what we really want. So if I become a witness to what's happening in the mind, I can start to see when there's a drop, right? And that's the drop that is the intuition. So 5 to 10 minutes a day, every day. There's no 21-day ending. It's just like brushing teeth, okay? And you know what? Maybe it's when you brush your teeth, but just bring that awareness that I'm brushing my teeth. and just see what happens when you're brushing your teeth. But if you can, have 5 or 10 minutes where you're just sitting and kind of doing nothing at all, nothing physical. So this is what I would recommend to you to start. Again, there's loads and tons of exercises, but this is really, 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 really the baseline and the most simplest. Yeah, and the most, it really does something. It's that container. Remember, you're creating, remember that when you're sitting, you're not sitting for nothing. You're sitting and you're creating this energy container, because of course you cannot see it, but it's an energy container within. Okay, so okay, so another question. Okay, hi everyone. My question, how do you train yourself to make the difference between intuition and the mind and emotions? And how do I know my mind is not simply making things up? And how do you train yourself to listen more to your inner voice? So I sort of answered that a little bit in the talk that I was, I sort of answered that a little bit. How do we train? Well, it's practice. So it's sort of, okay, there's many ways, of course. One of the biggest ways is to get to know yourself much better. In ways of working on yourself, right? So if you go all your life and you're constantly triggered into anger and you don't understand why I'm just giving an example, and you don't understand why you have this anger and you keep getting angry, but you don't do anything about it. You don't really know yourself because you don't know why you're getting angry. You don't know where it's coming from. You realize that you get angry a lot, but you're not really doing anything about it. And so you really don't, there's a realm of you, there's a dimension of you that you don't know. And so the more you know yourself, the more you get to know yourself, the more that you understand, oh, I'm getting triggered because this triggers me. And it's not because the person, you get to know your fears, right? You get to know your fears. So if you have a fear that people lie to you, for example, then you can start to understand, wait a minute, pause, wait a minute. Is this because of my fear that I have fear of someone lying to me? Is this because when I was a child, I was lied to all the time? Or is this my intuition telling me somebody's lying? Or that it's not the truth, whatever. I'm just grabbing an example. So I want to say one of the biggest things is self-development. You can call it healing, development, self-work, self-healing, whatever. Getting to know yourself on a deeper level. Because when you do, you can start to decipher, this is my mind, this is the way my mind works. How does your mind work? Do you know how your mind works and operates? Or how does your emotional self operate? So that's one way to start to decipher. The other way is that little meditation space, is creating that container. Can you tune into the drop in a noisy filled room? It's metaphoric. And how can you train yourself to be able to tune into that drop in a noisy filled room? Hence sitting in meditation. There's a whole bunch of energy healing tools that you can start to understand and move your energy. But again, the simplest way is that, sitting in meditation. So I'm just going to read your question again. I want to make sure that I completely answer it. Yeah. And again, the other thing, of course, is to learn these tools. Now, I can't, give out all these tools now, and nobody really can just speak tools. It's like really learning the tools. So either get a book on it, go to a course on it, check out some YouTube videos on it, but pay attention to you training in it. Okay, so we want to train our body. I'm going to use another example, and then I do have to run. We want to train our body to look a certain way, or to not only look a certain way, but to get strong. Well, there's very specific exercises that if you exercise these body parts and muscle groups in this way, you'll get the outcome. So I want to say again, this work is no different. There are specific exercises and tools and techniques that you can learn to be able to decipher the difference. I want to say not always effortlessly, but yeah, sometimes completely effortlessly, like second nature. And sometimes you'll have to decipher a little more, spend a little bit more time, and a lot of times it's just second nature. So see if you can, again, I'm doing the training, I do it, I'm just gonna plug it a little bit because it's always so rewarding for me to see at the end of it's a 4-day training, the transformation people do in just 4 days. When they come in and people are full of doubts and they're uneasy and it's weird and it's odd and it's overwhelming and it's wow and it's, can I really believe this? Is it really true? And then on the 4th day, last hour, it's like magical transformation people go through. It's one of the most beautiful experiences that I experience, really, to see people in those just 4 days. And so I would really encourage you, if it's something that really interests you, and if it's something that you really feel, you know what, I want to do this in my life, and I want to do this now, and I think it's time, and I feel it's time, watch the language, and you really feel resonance to, and I would really highly encourage you to get into some kind of workshop or training. Again, you can buy a book. The training that I'm doing here is happening at the end of February. It's a 4-day training, the last 2 weekends of February, full day training, where you learn a lot of techniques and tools. You learn how to read yourself. You learn how to read other people. So it's also in the process of learning how to read other people that you start to become more and more intuitive, because you start to see how people operate from a soul perspective, soul level. We don't stay on the surface, we go below the surface. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. So a lot of what I said, it was already kind of covered in the, sorry, a lot of the questions I was already covered in the little talk. Practice the meditation and really getting, knowing yourself, developing that, knowing yourself, and really finding some way to learn very specific tools and techniques is what I would say. So I can go on and on, but I do have to come to an end, and I can't see your faces, so I can't really see you. I see your names. I'm not sure if those are your real names, but thank you for joining this evening. And if it resonates with you, if you feel like a pull and a call, you can always come see me for like a 30-minute consultation, or you can call me and we can do it over the phone, or you can come in, we can talk a little bit more. But I do welcome you into the course. It's always a beautiful experience. You have it for life. It's not something yeah, you have it for life, really. The tools you have for life. So I welcome you. I encourage you if you feel the call to it. And I do hope to see you. And again, thank you so much for joining. And yeah, bye everybody.